All right, it's Big 12 today. Let's talk about that TCU Houston matchup. Ryan Monceaux joins us, GoCoogs.com. Ryan, what in the world happened last Saturday? How did this team fall behind 28-0? And has Dana fixed some of those issues out of the locker room? Did that blow your mind to see how challenged they were out of the gate?
Well, looking at the video after the fact, it just showed a lot of want to on one side and not a lot of want to on the other. Rice was completely motivated, and you could see it in the way they played offense, defense. I mean, it didn't matter. And then, you know, JT Daniels is a really good quarterback, and Luke McCaffrey. I mean, those are not guys that you think play for Rice. Those are big-time P5 guys, and they played like big-time P5 guys, at least for a half. They kind of dialed it back in the second half, and it allowed U of H back in it, but then they got it done in overtime.
From your perspective, effort then? I mean, is this an issue where they just don't have the horses, or is this an issue where, hey, all right, guys, we gotta get going? I thought it was pretty, maybe I don't want to say rewarding, but at least interesting that they were able to fight and scratch, scratch and get back in the game. But is this a personnel issue? Is this a talent issue, or is this a 1-2 issue in 23?
So I don't know if you can place, take the Rice game and make it extrapolated into the whole year. It's possible they were looking ahead. It's also possible that the talent that you see is not as good as other teams in the league. But a week ago, it was they just weren't ready. And Dana has called a lot of guys out. They had a team meeting, a player-only team meeting. I am as curious as anyone to see what happens. I don't think this team has an identity. I can't tell you the one thing they do well. We've been told that the receivers are by far the best group, but they've had a lot of drops. They've had issues. And you haven't run an offense yet to highlight those receivers. And so I think everybody here is curious still as to what this team is.
What have you thought of Donovan Smith's performance through the first couple weeks?
I thought Donovan has been okay. He has made a couple of plays that you're like, wow, that guy is legit. And then he's made some decisions that you just can't make. He's had probably 3 or 4 balls that should have been picked off. Only one of them was, and it was just a hellacious play by a nose tackle to get out in space and to run him down. But he's making some ill-advised throws. When he got in space running the ball in the fourth quarter, when Rice was kind of in a prevent, he made good plays. And, if he can make that in the flow of the game when they're still in it, that will show a lot more than, down 21 to Rice.
Is there another option? Is there, every year, like in Oklahoma this year, there's Jackson Arnold. Everyone's looking forward to him. Even though Quinn Ewers was great, everyone talks about Arch Manning. Is there someone waiting? Is there another guy, or is this going to be Donovan Smith's team this year?
I think it's Donovan's team. Lucas Coley's a backup. He went to Arkansas at high school and was the backup last year. They had a spirited competition this summer, but by all indications, Donovan was clearly the better option. So I think that's your guy. And Dana is not someone that moves back and forth between quarterbacks. In fact, when Clayton Tune was here, he really didn't take him out in blowouts. So I think Dana sticks with Donovan come hell or high water going forward.
Where do you see the biggest – I like this phrase. You said, I can't tell you the one thing they do well. If I were to press you and say, come on, one thing, man, what is there one area where you look at like, oh, okay, maybe that's okay, or is it just really that frustrating right now based on where the expectations were for this team?
For 5 years, Dana's team, if you point to one thing they've done really well, is punting. This is a punting program, and you can talk about offense or defense, but when this team is punting, things are going to go well. They've done well from Pro Kick Australia, getting 2 back-to-back guys that were really good punters. And we joke about it on our site and our podcast that we're a punting school, and Dana thinks that I am way too focused on kickers, but that would be the one thing that I think this program does well. If you said the second thing, I would tell you defensive line. But there are a couple of key injuries right now. The starting nose tackle and his backup both missed the Rice game. The starting nose tackle, his name is Chidozie Nwankwo, went down early in the UTSA game. And it's really kind of limited what they've done up front. I think Nelson Caesar is a legit Big 12 outside edge rusher, but without any help around him, he's less effective.
Now, looking at the defensive side of the ball, Ryan, has anyone really stood out to you, right? Has anyone impressed you for the Cougs defense?
Well, Caesar, number 9 on the edge, is a really good player and makes plays. Outside of that, just looking at the video, there was a lot of missed tackles last week. There's some talent in the defensive backfield, and maybe the most talented is a transfer from Texas Southern, just across the street from U of H. His name is Isaiah Hamilton. He's made a couple of big plays. He made an interception in the end zone that, frankly, it was 28-7 at the time. And if he doesn't pick that off, it goes to 35-7, and that's pretty much the game. He also caused a fumble, punched the ball out in the second half, and he's starting to make plays. We'll see if he can make the plays in the Big 12, but those are the 2 guys that have impressed me so far.
What from your perspective, and Ryan Monceaux joins us from GoCoogs.com, how has Houston fans handled this on your website, on your podcast? What's the reaction like? There's excitement being in the Big 12, but is there concern about where they're heading right now as far as the direction of the program?
Yeah, so the Big 12 has been a 25-year odyssey, almost 30 years. It has been the goal for an entire generation of U of H fans. And after you got through UTSA, you thought you were set up for this big debut. And the fans, as much as the team, were caught off guard by Rice. Did not expect it. And it's really diminished the excitement going into the Big 12. The crowd will still be nice, but will there be that enthusiasm as the team takes the field? I think if you flip the first 2 games, if you lose to UTSA and beat Rice, the mentality is a lot different. But losing the game right before you go into the Big 12 against a program you just see yourself as way better than, I think that's kind of dampened everything. Dana and the fan base kind of have a mutual uneasiness with each other.
Oh, I like that.
There's still a lot of questions about the future of the program, the direction. And a lot of people are worried that maybe he's not the guy. But I don't think that's a concern during the season this year. I don't think anything's ever going to happen. Much like Dana sticks with quarterbacks, they're going to stick with him. And so you've got to make it work together. And the fan base, I think, will be there. I don't know about the enthusiasm, and I just don't know how they feel about him long term.
That's really interesting, right? Everything you kind of just laid out there, Ryan. With all that in mind, are you expecting a rowdy atmosphere for this football game? Is there still, do you still get the sense that the fans are going to show up in a big way with it being the first Big 12 game, or could it be a bit of an underwhelming crowd?
I think the crowd will be there because Houston, if nothing else, the city does events really well. And this is an event. And like the enthusiasm might be muted, but I don't think the crowd will be. Because this has been so long in the making and has been framed in a certain way, which it should be, I think the crowd will be there. It's just, are they as rowdy as they should be? I don't have a good answer for that. I think they will be there to celebrate the historic moment in the school's odyssey.
From your perspective, I hate asking this question because we're 2 games in. I don't want to panic and freak out. That was a good win over UTSA, right? And that is still a team that came back and pushed to overtime and nearly beat Rice after falling behind 28-0. But does this heighten or raise any concerns for you when you see how things have started for BYU, UCF? Obviously, Cincinnati got the win over Pitt last week. Do you worry about the Big 12 readiness for the grind of this schedule for Houston?
I don't think it has changed after 2 weeks. I think those concerns were there. U of H brought in 42 new players this year. And despite how easy Dion has made it look, that's really hard to integrate everybody in early. And U of H caught a break with a schedule that was kind of manageable the first 4 weeks. TCU is really the only team that you think has more talent than U of H. How that goes into the Big 12, I'm not sure. If U of H can't get any better play on the right side of the line, the offensive line, then it's not going to really matter because Donovan Smith is going to be running for his life.
Final thought. What do you see in TCU? Team that got, national TV, got their defense shredded by Shedeur Sanders, and then bounced back and beat a Nicholls State team that we don't know too terribly much about. But what have you made of TCU as you've watched them and prepared for this matchup?
What I've seen is that they are pretty good in the underneath passing game, like all Sonny Dykes teams tend to be. And that's where Rice feasted on U of H, is in that 7 to 10 or 11-yard bubble. And if they can do that, if they can hit the quick hitters, that's exactly where Rice took advantage in the first half. If they can do that, then it could be a long night for U of H. But if U of H can make them one-dimensional and make them run the ball more, it could work out.
Should be fun. I can't wait to see what the atmosphere and the reaction is like from this Cougar team. Ryan Monceaux. Good stuff, man. We'll check out at GoCoogs.com, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Love this note. And I hate that I didn't ask whenever we had Ryan Monceaux on. But you talked yesterday to Sonny Dykes, and he brought up just how unique it is, the challenge of playing and coaching against so many guys that he coached with. And that Mike Leach 2000 staff, oh my goodness. You got 2 guys squaring off on Saturday, and Dana Holgerson and Sonny Dykes, who were on that staff. Obviously Lincoln Riley was a part of that staff. And that obviously through the 2000s, I guess I should say. And 05 and 06, Dykes and Holgerson split OC duties for Mike Leach. I mean, Gabe, that's pretty unbelievable, man. And now you look back, and even though we've lost Mike Leach, boy, his impact is still felt on college football with the coaches that he helped develop every single day.
No, there's no doubt about it, man. And, yeah, you look at some of those staff pictures from back in the day at Tech, and it's really impressive. It is really, really impressive, the amount of guys that worked for him that are now just in such prominent roles here in the sport. And that's why, I mean, he changed football. He changed football. And that's why I think at some point they will – I think he's like a few wins shy of hitting the win percentage criteria. Right, but I think they got to make an exception for Mike Leach to get into the Hall of Fame, right?
Oh, unreal. Unreal, right?
With the amount of influence that he's had just on the sport as a whole, he changed football. You got to that if that doesn't make you a Hall of Famer, then what does?
I mean, I'm going through this article on GoCoogs.com right now. It's just incredible. Just incredible. So, one of the fun things about that Big 12 opener this weekend between TCU and Houston is two Mike Leach proteges, two guys that coached under Leach in his first stop that are getting an opportunity to square off. And arguably, even though some of the luster has been lost with the loss to Rice, Gabe, this is one of the biggest moments in the history of Houston football. You know, I know Andre Ware won a Heisman Trophy. I know that they had teams that put 100 points on the board, but they're playing their first game in the Big 12 conference against a Big 12 opponent. Now, some might say in a couple of weeks, whenever Texas comes to town, that might top it. But this is what everything had built towards. Damn, it sucks they lost to Rice.
It does, doesn't it? I would just take so much sizzle off this game.
Oh,
but
man.
You're right. It's the start of a new chapter for Houston football, right? Hopefully the Cougs fans still show up and show out for that football game. Team needs you, Cougs fans. Come on.
Team needs you.
We lift them up.